Thank you for your patience, everyone.
Hello, everyone. I'm Rhea Dyer. For those of you who may know me from working in your counties, WAVISHA, the Speech and Hearing Association, or just me being out and about, it's good to see some familiar faces on here. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Rhea Dyer, and I own and operate two contract-based therapy services companies here in the state. One of those, which happens to be all telepractice. So my company, Integrated Speech Solutions, works in 15 counties in West Virginia. So some of you may know me or are therapists from working in your counties. And when this all happened this spring, I started working with some of the counties that we were in. Are we providing services, and then also helping out some counties where we don't currently provide services to help everybody kind of get prepared for the journey that's ensued since mid-March. So in an effort to Leanne and Libby really wanted to keep things organized and streamlined, and for everyone to have access to a lot of materials and information. So I think they've got a really good idea here in terms of getting everybody familiar with this concept of virtual services, and then having a place to go where you can find resources and things that you need to be able to implement that. So I created a little PowerPoint here. I'm going to share my screen with you. My apologies if I'm a little bit slower on Teams. I'm used to using Zoom. That's the platform that we use most often. So I'm quick on Zoom, so I might be a little slower on Teams. But I hope everybody can see the PowerPoint presentation. So what I'm going to go over today is just some basics, some getting started tips. I know the Department of Ed has been doing a lot of informational sessions on different areas of Microsoft 365. And if your county is going to use Teams as an official virtual platform, then there's a lot of really great information there. If your county is going to use Zoom, I have a lot of really great information on Zoom. And if they're going to use something else, I can certainly help you navigate that if it's something I'm not familiar with. So what are the goals for today? Just kind of the basics of teletherapy. You know, it's really hard to do this in a just a little introductory PowerPoint presentation, but just some getting started tips, an introduction to the Telepractice resources team that Leanne and Libby have created, establishing a network and a place to share resources, and some familiarity with virtual collaboration. You've heard this gig if you've already heard me talk in a couple of other counties, but you know, if nothing else comes from this whole situation other than the silver lining of it's forced us to be a little bit more virtually collaborative, I think that is, you know, something that we can be really proud of, because having these teams, sites and things is a really great way for everybody to stay in touch and to be able to share things. So this is a little about me. And I want to go over, I created this as kind of a framework, so I hope you all can see this. Leanne created the Telepractice training and support group team, which I believe you guys are all now members of by being part of this meeting today. And what this is meant to do, there are a couple different channels that we're going to be creating. These are kind of subgroups within the main team, and we're going to put some focus on some specialty areas that maybe be a little bit more intensive, especially if we're providing services virtually. So we've already kind of earmarked things like AAC and pre-K and autism spectrum disorders. And Leanne has some plans there to have some guest experts in these areas, some specific resources for these particular things, and a place where these therapists can collaborate and ask and answer questions, get resources for things. There's going to be the resource notebook. We're going to go over that resource notebook, and in it, it has some platform guidance, parent resources, therapy resources, and this is a place where therapists can share things that they find or they've used with all the other therapists who subscribe in the state. Leanne is going to stream the videos from our meetings and any other team, meetings that we have on a tab within Teams. These will be either video resources that are created or meeting videos, such as today. And then we're also going to do a little Friday series called Telepracticing.
Hello?
And in that Friday session, we're going to meet Fridays at 11 a.m. You can drop in on the session if you want. And that's going to be specific to sharing specific resources. So we're going to spend a half hour together. We're going to do a little telepractice tip of the day. We're going to demonstrate and identify 3 separate resources that you all can use in teletherapy. We're going to introduce those resources, talk about them, demonstrate them, help create some activities, and then we're going to have a little question and answer session at the end. So just kind of something to keep our, ideas fresh and keep everybody exposed to some new things. Down here in the orange, there's been lots of counties who have created their own county-based teams. And I think those are still really great resources. But the way I imagine these 2 team groups working together, the county-based teams is a really great place to keep county-specific forms, county-specific guidance and meeting notes, question and answer, things that are going to be asked of you from a county level. So as of now, things such as your distance learning plans, if your county has come up with those, any consent forms, guidance, instructions, those are great places to share those things. And then, of course, you got your post section where you guys can, ask and answer questions from other therapists in your county. So just kind of a way that I see those things working together. You all can feel free, to utilize whatever you want to there. So let's begin by going over some things, help you guys get organized on the Teams page. So when you go into the Teams page, there's a section for files. This is a place where we're going to kind of drag and drop some, information, a great place for, Word documents, PDFs, things like that, resource documents that, you may want to print or save or even share on your own county website. You can pull those off of this file section right here. So you can see we've got a couple of resources in there already. Contact forms. This is something that I know that I've seen on a lot of county Teams sites. If you have a specific contact form or you have a specific consent form, you want to check with your county to see if they've developed one. I know not all counties have developed this specific type of resource, but this is something that if Leanne would want to share like a sample version or a very generic version that you can modify to your county, we might be able to post one on the team site. And then also the consent form. If you guys want to utilize those consent forms, there are several examples floating around from several counties. So these are consents to do virtual therapy at home. So like I said, we can talk to Leanne and if we can possibly add a very generic version, a modifiable version on the Teams site, but there are certainly some good examples. So, just ask in the Teams group if you're looking for one, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. This resources section here, this is going to be where the resource notebook is housed. And I want you to know that Libby Simmons has been working honestly day and night, because I heard from her several times over the weekend, so I know she worked all weekend on this resource notebook that is going to be a work in progress. So she already has a ton of information built into this resource notebook. It's built on a OneNote platform. Great place. You can see she's created all kinds of tabs and areas for specific types of therapy, specific types of students, specific types of resources that you may be looking for, and a lot of general information. And you can see there's a tab, the screenshot that I took is in regards to Microsoft Teams. So this is something that, we'll be adding to regularly, a place where all of you can go if you're looking for a certain type of resource. And then This is a place where you can pull handouts, you can pull, apps or websites and things like that. So we're hoping it's kind of the go-to place to find things you might be looking for. So it saves you time and not having to look for that stuff, all over creation, especially when a lot of you can't get into your buildings to get some of your resources you have. So this might be a good time, Libby, do we have any questions up until this point?
No questions yet.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. That's just kind of the basics of where you're going to be able to find everything. So let's talk a little bit about this concept of providing, virtual therapy at home. So, I want you all to know that this is not an ideal circumstance to be learning teletherapy. When we train teletherapists in our business, those therapists shadow with existing providers that are providing teletherapy for at least 2 weeks. Then we do follow-up and, all kinds of things to transition them into teletherapy. So not only are you guys not considering teletherapy under unusual circumstances, we now have the extra layer of providing that therapy in a home setting. So you're at home, they're at home. It's not always ideal. Our families are home, and it's something that if all the stars were aligned, we probably wouldn't do it this way. But I certainly think I've been using the term using a good faith effort. And I think when this all shakes out in the end, if we can say that we made a really good faith effort to reach our families and to stay connected with our families, that we could be really proud of that. So I posted a document in the team's website under the files section, and it relates to teletherapy etiquette. Just some things to think about. I realize that all of these things aren't always going to apply when, we're in our current circumstance of working from home. But you want to try and continue to maintain as professional a home office setting as possible. So you're going to be working with these students in their homes. Their home situation may be busy and noisy and have background noise or siblings or other people in the house, or someone's cooking, and you want to try and limit those distractions to just being on one side and not having distraction on the home side and on your side. I realize that's not always possible given, the circumstance that we're in. Just something to think about and to try and do the best you can. And then some little obvious things. When we're doing telespeech, we're never providing telespeech in our bedroom. So we have a rule that we don't see bedposts when we're doing telespeech. So, try and find a table or an area of your house that, you can kind of set up as your space to be able to provide these services in as professional a manner as possible. Other things that I know that we've talked about in other settings, that a lot of these families are overwhelmed. And, the longer this has continued, it seems the more overwhelmed they've gotten. They're getting bombarded with packets and class dojos and Schoology and all these different areas and things that they're being asked to access and log into and turn in. And this is going to be a county to county conversation. But we've talked about being collaborative within the IEP team. So your co-therapist and related service providers, if it's possible or allowed in your county to maybe buddy up and meet with those families together, like you and the OT both find a common time where you can meet with that family so you guys can both touch base with that family at the same time during the same appointment. So it kind of decreases some of that apprehension and just difficulty in keeping track of things. And even if those therapists aren't providing something directly, let's say they're indirect service providers or, there's something else, it's still a nice way for you to be able to pop in, and say, just checking on you, seeing how you're doing, see how we can help without having that extra layer of scheduling another appointment or session. And it gives other IEP providers the ability to collaborate with you and the parents. So it's honestly a little bit of a rarity that we get a chance sometimes to see each other all together or work with some of our other IEP providers. So it might be a nice chance to get to see, some collaboration between therapists. When you're thinking about activities for telepractice, you want to remember that just as in your regular practice, when you're thinking about your days in your schools and the way that you format your activities in your session, the younger the student in general, the more quickly you're going to have to change activities. So you're thinking about those pre-K students, you usually have a way to keep things fresh. You've either got reinforcements built in, or you've got several different activities you're planning on doing during the same session. It's going to be no different in virtual world. You're going to want to make sure that you are keeping their attention. And a frequent change in activities, the younger those students are, is going to be your best bet to do that. Your younger students, pre-K and kindergarten, enjoy a lot of the interactive materials. They enjoy the things that do something if they select something, things that are games, things that have animation, things that are interactive. So you want to think about that. Your older students are your students that you can use some of those drill worksheets. A lot of the things you're going to find maybe on Teachers Pay Teachers, if you all use those resources, or some of your drill books, and some of the less visually stimulating activities. And if you get really lucky where you can use some actual classroom material, you may for your middle school students or something like that, being able to even incorporate those things. These are some really common places that I know that people kind of gravitated towards. I know lots of you use Articulation Station in your brick and mortar schools when you're in your classrooms, and you can still use that resource even in virtual therapy. I know ABC has become a really popular place, or Starfall. And then Teachers Pay Teachers is here on the right. That's a great resource for some really well done, kind of worksheets or drill worksheets or things like that. And I know Libby has incorporated a lot of things from Teachers Pay Teachers, or things from other resources into that resource notebook already. There's also some really great Facebook groups that have really ramped up efforts, in the past month to share some resources or share some places that are offering free subscriptions right now, or offering free resources that generally aren't free. And so I kind of scan these Facebook groups here and there to see if there's anything kind of fresh and innovative that maybe we didn't know about. So if you're a Facebook person and, you want to subscribe to these groups, I know they've been posting a lot of resources and subscriptions and websites, and I've even seen some really, really innovative tools and things that people have been using for sharing their screens, and some real creative things. So it's not a bad place to start if you're looking for something new. Libby, do we have any questions yet?
No questions, but we have someone who's having trouble seeing your PowerPoint, and I'm not quite sure why. Sue is hearing, you're hearing her, right, Sue? But she's not able to see your PowerPoint change, and I'm not sure what we need to do to help her. She can hear you.
Sue, this is Leanne. It might be easier for you to just log off and watch the video, because the video will have the full screen. It's kind of hard for us to problem solve this with you in the middle of this. So we could be sure and send the link to you if that's okay.
All right, so if there's no other questions right now.
There was a question just now about, so that there will be resources in there will be activities and therapy materials in the resources tab. And to answer that, there will be links to some of those resources, and ideas of apps that you can use, but then you would still need to go there and work out whatever arrangements. I know we have to be careful with sharing things like teacher pay teachers. Therefore we're just sharing the information, and you go there and go through whatever survey or questionnaire they may have for you to go to get free access.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense, Amanda? Yes. Okay. All right. Excellent. You all can also, when we direct a question to you, you can turn on your mic and ask any questions that you have. We have reached capacity for this meeting, and so we have to make sure we can't have all of our mics on and stuff at the same time. But do you have any other questions, Amanda? Nope, she's good. All right. Thanks, Rhea. That is all.
Okay. So let's get into a couple of little kind of do's and don'ts for virtual therapy. And I want you guys to kind of compare this to your regular day-to-day school life, and to kind of get a feeling for if your county is considering doing some virtual therapy, how this is going to be the same and different for you. So you do want to prepare a telespeech session just as you would any other speech session. I imagine when you're in your schools, you're going to your filing cabinets, or you're going to your bookshelves, and you're pulling things off of your bookshelves, and you're getting them ready for your group of students or your student. And you're going to do that same type of thing, just in a different way. If you're going to be sharing a worksheet, you want to get that worksheet pulled up and ready to go in a tab. If you're going to be sharing a website, you want to get that website pulled up and ready to go, because time is kind of the essence in virtual therapy. And you're in a student's home, and we want to make sure we kind of keep that attention. So if you're burning time by pulling up your browser and then going to that website and then getting to that activity that you wanted to pull up, that's valuable time that you're wasting, which you may be losing attention with your student. So you want to prepare for a telespeech session just as you would any other speech session, but it'll just be a little bit different in getting your materials ready. You want to include direct intervention and data tracking into your session. So you want to still be addressing the goals that are in your IEP that you're able to address in the home setting, or that you've indicated that you're going to address in your distance learning plan. And for those goals that you're going to be addressing, you may want to still continue to take data on those things. The easiest and most obvious choice there is for your sound error students, your articulation students. It's very easy to take data on those students, even in a virtual setting. You may have to think a little bit more about your students that your evaluation criteria was per teacher report or per classroom observations. You're going to have to think about whether those goals are going to be applicable right now or not, and if they are, how you plan on collecting data for those things. You need to prepare to use your best verbal and visual instruction. You have to keep in mind, you don't have your hands anymore. So for those of you who are the tactile teachers, and you're the people that are the hands-on group, you've got to become a real good descriptor, because you have to be able to address what you want to address using verbal instruction or using visual demonstration. You're not going to get that tactile piece unless you use a parent as a, kind of an assistant or a facilitator for you to do with their child what you want them to do. Okay, so you need to think about that. I think being patient really kind of goes without saying at this point, but these students are at home, not at school. So even the students that you know very, very well, you were used to working with them, maybe they've been on your caseload for quite some time, you still may have to get to know them a little bit in the home setting, because you're not used to seeing them at home. That's not the regular place where you see them. So things may be different. The dynamics might be a little bit different. So you might have to go back to the kind of that beginning of the year concept of your your few establishing rapport sessions where you're really kind of figuring out what makes those students tick. You might have to do that, a little bit with these students under these circumstances. You want to think about maybe incorporating a new reward system into your sessions. So for those sticker chart people, it's time to think of something new. You don't have your sticker charts in virtual therapy. I'll tell you some of the things that our students generally love. They love to see pets. So if you save, maybe at the end, you say, oh my gosh, I've got a puppy. And if you do a really good job at the end, I'll let you see my puppy. They love cats and dogs and fish and different things. They love to see those things. I know another thing with the students being at home that we found that they really enjoy is letting them show you something that's important to them. Maybe at the end of the session, they get to show you a toy or something they keep on their wall, or something they're excited about at home. That's been a really positive thing and a really great reward for the students, that we get to see something that belongs in their home. And you want to allow yourself time in between sessions to prepare for the next. So if you're one of those therapists that kind of gets everything ready in the morning, when you get to school and you kind of have everything laid out for your day, you may have to kind of adapt a little bit and do some of those sessions and allow yourself time in between each session, so you can get the right websites pulled up, you can get the right apps ready to go, and you can be ready for those sessions as they come about. Things that you don't want to do. To the most extent possible, you don't want to allow distractions in your environment to interrupt your session, and do the best you can right now. I know some of the people we've been meeting with and the therapists, they've been using the virtual backgrounds. If they use Zoom, I see them using the virtual backgrounds because, their backgrounds may be busy, at home, or, they want to try and keep things focused. Like I said, finding the most quiet spot, in your home that you can, or scheduling, trying to schedule your sessions at a time where it might be quiet. You don't want to be unprepared. If you're using whatever you're using in your sessions, you want to have those tabs pulled up and ready to go before you begin. You don't want to be distracted. So if you're taking data and you're constantly looking down, or you're typing, or you're trying to pull something else, up, you want to try and minimize that as much as possible. Telespeech is actually really intimate. Everybody thinks it's very distant because, we're not sitting there in front of the student, but it actually is very intimate. You see my face, I see yours. There's not really anything else to look at other than us looking at each other. So you want to be engaged, and you want to be there for the time that you've got that student in front of you. You don't want to allow for you to be the adult supervision. Make sure a caregiver's present. So I know that there's been a lot of questions about this, and there's going to be obviously a level of clinical judgment involved in this. So we have students that sit right beside their parents, and their parents, sit right beside us during the session. We have parents who have other kids at home, so they may be sitting in the same living room, but, trying to keep the siblings busy while the other student does work with us. Or mom may be doing dishes, in the background or something, but they're there. What you don't want to happen is, oh, I see that they're doing speech with you, so I'm going to go over to the gas station. You don't ever want to be the adult supervision. And don't give up. Keep in mind that this is different for all of us. Like I said, you guys are used to a certain way of doing things. And even the people who are making the jump to do telepractice as a career have a lot more training and preparation than I realize you guys do in the current circumstance. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to ask, for guidance. Don't be afraid to ask for resources. That's one of the main reasons that Leanne wanted to do this, is to have a place where, everyone could go to get their questions answered and to lessen some of that apprehension. What are some of the differences from traditional therapy? You have a unique opportunity right now to engage your caregivers. They're going to be your adult supervision. They're going to be there, getting the student logged on, hopefully being present for the session. Use them, teach them how to practice at home with their students. Teach them how to do the things that you want those students doing so they can carry over those activities. So we don't get that opportunity very often. So this is a unique opportunity to engage them. We talked about this, having to strengthen your auditory and verbal cues. You don't have your tactile component, so you've got to be a really good describer. Managing technology is still difficult for some of us. I recommend trying to work out the kinks before you begin. So anyone who's logged on who, I've done a training session for their county, I recommend that whatever platform they're going to use, they find a buddy and they test out getting logged on, sending those invitations, using codes, sharing resources, sharing screens. Get used to some of those things. Doing it is the best way to learn it. So just kind of getting on, messing around with a therapist friend, getting used to where those buttons are and where to find things is honestly the best way to get yourself familiar. And you can still, yeah. Did someone ask a question? No. You can still use a lot of some of your favorite activities. If you were the therapist that used a lot of technology in your day-to-day speech activities, chances are you can use a lot of that technology from home. So you can share apps, you can share websites, you can do those things. You just have to keep in mind you're not going to be sitting right beside the student helping them navigate that. You're just going to be on the other end. But for those of you who are already familiar with those sort of technology-based resources, you can still use a lot of those. And also, when you find your tech buddy and you guys are testing out capabilities of your platform and what your platforms do and don't do, you want to figure out how your student is going to make selections. So if you're doing something where a student has to make a choice between 2 or 3 items, or you want them, the thing that always comes to mind is, we're saying, I want you to point to this. Well, keep in mind, you don't know what they're pointing to. So you have to have a way for those students to be able to identify. In Zoom, we annotate our screens a lot. We highlight things, different colors. We'll put numbers on bingo tiles so the students can say, I choose, number 2, or I choose the yellow one. And you have some of those resources available to you if you're using Teams or some of the other platforms. So get used to what your platform allows and how you're going to utilize those things within your platform.
I have a couple questions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How do we access our apps, like from our iPad, if we're hosting, if we're doing our telepractice on a laptop?
Most of the time you can use like a USB cord, and you can USB like an iPad or even your smartphone if you have the apps on your phone into your computer if you have a USB plug or something on the side, and you can share that secondary screen.
Okay.
It'll recognize that you have something plugged into your computer, and you can usually share it that way.
Okay. And then going to Zoom with the allowing access, allowing the student to get remote control.
Mm-hmm.
Can a host give a student the choosing of phone or a tablet remote control, or do they have to be on a laptop or a computer?
No, they can use a tablet or something that has a touch screen. They'll just touch to use the remote access for the screen instead of using a mouse or a keypad.
Okay, I've been having a lot of difficulty with that, but I'll keep trying then.
Yeah, and I can absolutely help you through some of that.
Okay, thank you.
Zoom's my strong area. Okay, so any questions about just some considerations for teletherapy, some do's and don'ts, some just basic differences, some things to kind of think about and ponder. Okay. All right. So we'll touch on this a little bit. Medicaid billing and TCM. There is a portion in your team's tabs that's a frequently asked questions, and I think it's actually Q&A in the actual team's notebook. And this is a place where, as Leanne and Libby get questions, they're going to be able to post those questions in the team site and post the answers there. So usually if a question's asked once, it's asked more than once. So it's a way to kind of get that information out to everybody. The services that we provide directly via teletherapy are billable in Medicaid if you're providing that service to a Medicaid eligible student. And we use the same 5-digit CPT codes that we do in our school therapy. We just add a GT modifier to the end. So example, if you're using code 92507, it would be 92507 GT. And GT is just a modifier to indicate that it was provided over Telepractice. Services that aren't provided directly are more coaching, resource related, something that falls within the targeted case management realm may be billable for targeted case management. And I know that Leanne and Libby, I think, are going to post some information about, Medicaid billing and targeted case management specifically in that Q&A section of teams of the team.
Leah, you do have a question about how you get the session started, like what do the parents need and what kind of permissions do they need to give and that kind of thing. It's from Jody. Jody, do you want to add to that?
Okay, so I'll go ahead and ask if she has something to add, or answer if she has something to add. This is a little bit of a county to county procedure. So it's more common that in counties where we've started to provide telespeech at home, or virtual live services at home, we have a conversation with those parents about providing that service and talking with them a little bit about what that means. They're going to be logged in live, with us. We're going to be working with them directly, going over a few talking points, and then asking them if they feel that's the best way to access the student right now. If the family is equipped with internet connection or cellular connection and the right equipment, then they may choose that option. And if so, we have a little consent form that we're using in a lot of places just to say, yes, the family has indicated that, they would like this option and they're giving consent, for us to provide services in this way. Just because we're going to be live in their homes and we want that level of consent to be addressed, to say, yes, you're agreeing for us to, in essence, be admitted into your home in this way to provide these services.
But Jody also said, I just need to know how to work Teams for a session. So I misunderstood the question.
Okay. Well, you guys, since we're in Teams, I can show you a few things, while we're in Teams. You might not have the ability while I'm sharing something to go over those things, but we'll go over a few things when we go over the resource notebook on how to access those things. Okay, so I left this slide in here in case you all wanted to see something that was created for a county Teams site. Before we kind of hatched this plan of having this kind of mega team where everybody could come and get resources, several counties had already established county teams and had built in some resources and folders and things where you could find things. I just wanted to show you this in case you were developing your team site and you wanted to look at something like this and it helped anyone in being able to format your own team. And then feel free to add some of your favorite materials to share with the group. So, in the post section, you can drag and drop resources, PDFs, different things, a Word document you've created or, something like that. So if you have something that you want to share with the group, and if it's something that, is free and shareable, Libby might add it to the resource notebook as well. We'll kind of glaze over this a little bit. I know this doesn't apply to all of you. Supervision requirements, if you have PTs and OTs in your county and they're providing virtual services, those supervision requirements remain the same as they're already outlined by state licensure boards. For SLPAs, supervision requirements have changed to accommodate the situation. In general, SLPAs are generally not permitted. Now, this is according to state licensure boards and ASHA, but SLPAs are generally not permitted to provide telepractice. But in the Department of Ed and Leanne had reviewed a lot of that, and they felt that in this circumstance, they really didn't want students going without services who were on caseloads provided by SLPAs. So she reviewed some of this, and SLPAs must be supervised 100% for the first telepractice session. And then after the first session, they must have 25% direct supervision. So I just wanted that to be in here for you guys to make note of that, because it's a little bit different than any other guidelines out there. So I want you guys to know you've got this. We're all learning how to do this together. And now that we have this big mega team, we're really going to use that it takes a village mentality. So, I know this was kind of a brief, overview of just some basic things. But like I said, you can't really teach telepractice in a PowerPoint. So just wanted you guys to have some things to think about. At this moment, before we look at the resources notebook and we look at teams a little bit, are there any questions, comments?
Yes,
thoughts?
we're starting to get questions.
All right.
So let me see if I can. Okay, so first one is how would you do an observation of like an SLPA while they were doing a direct, while they were doing a teleservice?
So if you're going to be strictly observing, I would recommend when you log on to your platform, the supervisor and the assistant log on together. And as the supervisor, I would recommend you sort of ghost the session. So you turn your camera off, you turn your microphone off, so you can see what's going on, but you're not a distraction to the child and the session that's in play.
Then there's a question, and then there's one I think that's more of Leanne, but there's one, will we each be invited to the mega team? Yes, you can join that now. There is a Teams program already set up, and I think, Leanne, you sent out information about that team, correct? And they just do the link?
I sent out the code to join the team.
Uh-huh.
I can pull that up real quickly and give it to you verbally. Then you would go to Teams in Office 365 and then go click on Join a Team. And then it says Join a Team with a code. And that's what you would use. You would use the code. I'm going to give you in just a second.
And then the question from Emily C. Since much of West Virginia is rural and many students and our providers may have limited access to quality internet, can you talk about the ethical problems that may arise with providing direct services only to students with good enough internet access?
Well, that's a little bit of a hot topic right now, as that not only applies to our services, but, there's a lot of difficulty in accessing those students for general education programs and other things as well. And I think Leanne is going to correct me if I'm incorrect on this, but this is where that term good faith effort really starts to come back into play. We're going to make a good faith effort to reach as many students as we can in the best way that we can. We fully realize we're not going to be able to get to all of them. We're not going to be able to reach all of them. They're not all going to have the right access. They're not all going to have internet. They're not all going to have cell phone service. And we get that. And I think a lot of those conversations are going to end up happening, here shortly. Now that we have the guidance that we're not going back physically to school this year, I think there'll be a lot more conversations on what some of these things look like, because that was a question mark until about an hour ago. So I think the best thing that you can do is keep really good documentation, keep really good records of what you've been able to provide and not able to provide to the students. So when we do come back to school, we're able to have those conversations and say, let's talk about this student to student and figure out what we're going to do next.
I would also say too that you need to talk to your special ed director about those concerns. That's a local control issue, and that's not something we can really provide guidance on, except what Rhea just said. Your special ed directors are well aware of issues within your counties, and they'll tell you how they're going to address those issues. So be sure and talk to them about those types of concerns. I have the code now to join the team. If you'd like to take that down, it's 86 lowercase s z e as in Edward, D as in dog, D as in dog, all lowercase letters. 86 s z e d d. And I'll send it out as well with the link to this recording.
So we have a question. What is the simplest way to notify a parent of a scheduled Zoom session if the host schedules the session on a laptop?
What is the simplest way to notify the parent? Depending on how you generally communicate with the parent, in Zoom, if you use a personal meeting room, you have a recurring kind of, I call it your Zoom phone number. It's 9 digits, just like, or 10 digits, just like a phone number. So you can give that to a parent, you can call them and give that to them. If you're emailing with that parent, if you're texting with that parent, however you're communicating, to be able to give it to them. There's also a couple of kind of tech savvy situations. There's some kind of intermediary apps that the family, you can actually set some parameters in your availability, and you can send the parent a notification, and they can actually sign up for a session, and then it kicks back your Zoom code to them, or your Teams code, or whatever it might be. I've not run that app with Teams. I've only run it with Zoom, so I'd have to play with it just a little bit. But that program that we've been using is called Calendly, Calendly. And it just is kind of an easy way that takes the, call and schedule, what time are you available, whatever. You can just kind of shoot out a text, and it sends a link that they can just sign up for a session based on whatever parameters you set. And it kicks back the invitation to them.
She was saying she was sorry. She meant, what is the easiest way to notify parents by text? This is Becky Poling.
Oh, I would just give them your Zoom ID.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm on here now. Yeah, I know sometimes, like, I get notifications by text of a meeting, but I think those meetings have been set up on the phone, on somebody's phone. And I was just wondering the easiest way, if you set up the meeting on a laptop, how to notify them by text. I kind of figured out a way to do it, but it takes a lot of steps. But okay. I didn't know if there was just a really simple, like a 1-click, 2-click way to do it or not.
You can copy, when you're in Zoom and you're creating a meeting, you can copy the invitation and sit somewhere. And it'll paste right into where you're sending email, text, and it'll have a direct click for the link.
So the question was, will the Friday series also be recorded and shared? And Leanne, that it will be, correct?
Yes, it will be. We even created a Telepractice channel that all those recordings will be listed on. So if you go into stream and just Google Telepractice, the Telepractice channel will come on. We also have a link to that channel in our group, and we'll start posting the videos there as well.
There was a question about the typical length of a teletherapy session.
So if we're doing our telepractice sessions, traditionally we do them one of two ways. We do have places where, you know, we run a 20-minute session, a 30-minute session, but we also run a high intensity model where we run somewhere between 5 and 10-minute sessions more frequently throughout the week. When converting telepractice services to home, I think you need to pay attention to whether your county has a distance learning plan already established that, you know, they're going to be using, which is a look at what you're going to be addressing while we're not in school, what IEP goals are going to be addressed, what's not going to be addressed. And you need to get some guidance from your director about what the expectation is in providing those services at home. I'll tell you the most common thing that I've seen right now is the goal is to keep these students engaged. Keep them engaged, keep them working on their skills and keeping things going. I haven't heard anybody saying that they're going to adhere to exact IEP minutes and such. Our average session that we're running at home is about 15 to 20 minutes. That's about average for home. Our middle school students, we're able to get a little bit longer if we're working on, you know, something, you know, a little bit more intensive. And obviously our preschool students hover more around that 15-minute range.
Okay, there's a question, well, there's several questions about the confidentiality of group sessions.
Yeah, you want to be really careful with group sessions. You need to keep in mind that when you run a group session, if you have two students in two different homes logged into one session, that one student can see into another student's home. And you want to be really careful with that. If you have siblings that live in the same home, a first and a second grader, they both happen to be in speech, and you know you are planning to see them together, that's different. But you want to be very, very careful with having the ability for a student to see inside another student's home, because that can open up a world of potential dilemmas, ethical dilemmas. So I would recommend seeing students one-on-one if it were me.
I would concur with that, because you're also not, it's not only the student seeing inside a student's home, it's the parent seeing inside a student's home and seeing what that student, how that student's performing compared to their child. And I would be very hesitant to do that.
So we have questions about using Teams. The first one from Pam Kane is, when you schedule students for sessions weekly, do you need to notify them every time, or does that code work every week? And then also the other question is, do parents have to download the Teams app in order to get started?
Leanne, you might know this a little bit better than I do. I think you can use the same code or way to log in Teams every week. If you're doing, you know, a recurring session, I believe you can do that.
I think you can too. We'll double check with Mark Moore to make sure how that's done, and we can put that in the question and answer section on the Teams group. And also, yes, they would have to download the Teams app. Yes, they would.
Most all video teleconferencing platforms, if you're using an iPad or a tablet or a phone, are going to prompt you to, they all generally have an app. Teams, Zoom, some of the others, even Adobe Connect, and a lot of those meeting type things, they all have an app.
So Ashley says she was able to proceed on the Internet Explorer without downloading, but it offered both.
Yeah, if you're using a laptop or a desktop, you might not get prompted to download an app. Depends a little bit on the hardware that you run, but yeah, you might not get prompted to download an app from an actual computer.
And it also depends on what you're going to do with it. Some of the functions in Teams may not be present if you don't download the app. So, you can work with your parents to see which one works with you, but I can also check with Mark more about that as well.
And Leanne, it might be best for what we're trying to do if maybe Mark would provide, a little guidance and training on some of those specific features that we're being asked about for Teams, sharing, scheduling meetings, things like that.
Okay.
I know
And
how to use Teams, but Teams isn't my strength. So it might be helpful from someone like him to.
Sure. We're going to try. We have been trying to add him to our team. He wasn't available today, but we will check with him about that. The other thing is Libby has put in the resource notebook a link to Teams videos that Mark's created where you can go in and search for some of those specific questions. And they're just short videos to tell you how to do it in the meantime.
And Rhonda, in answer to your question about will you need different Teams group for each student, I believe the way I understand Teams and we'll check this with Mark, but I think if you set up a class notebook, then it will allow you to access different students privately and be able to see them. But we will double check on that too. We have been trying to get Mark to be involved, and I'm sure he will. He's just a busy man, but he will help us a lot with Teams, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, without any further questions, Rhea, I think on your Friday call, did you say you were going to demonstrate some of the resources that you share so they can, I thought we were going to maybe do like a practice lesson, but it's already 3 o'clock. So could we maybe think about doing that for Friday with one of the resources you share, just how you would use it in therapy? Okay, that'd be great. All right, well, thank you so much.
Here's one more question.
All right.
Sarah, and I can't, let's see, because speech labs or RTI groups are part of general education, would be able to see them in groups?
No, just because they'll be coming from their homes. It's not like seeing them in the school building. So, seeing them in their homes is a completely different situation. And because of confidentiality, that isn't advised. Okay, well, thank you guys so much for joining. We actually hit the limit and this webinar was full. So thank you so much. We had over 250 people and we appreciate your time. And we hope that this is going to make you feel a little bit more at ease to keep up. I'm sorry, I was reading a question that was coming in. I hope this makes you feel a little bit more at ease and more comfortable about what you're going to be doing. So Angela says she's too busy keeping up with her kiddos and IEPs, don't even know how to reach our TI kids. Yeah, I wouldn't think that would be something that would be your responsibility, but you need to double check that with your special education director or your principal. So thank you guys so much. And if you have any issues about trying to find the recordings or the team code, that kind of thing, please shoot us an email and we'll help you get started. Thank you so much. Thank you, Rhea, for everything. We really appreciate it.
Yeah. See y'all Friday.
Thank you. And Libby, thank you for setting up the resource notebook. I think they're really going to love it. So we'll see you guys soon.